"Somebody help! My son, he's choking." The scream ripped through the air like glass shattering. Every head in the crowded diner turned toward the sound. A little boy, no older than 6, was clutching his throat, his small face turning red, then blue. People froze, too shocked to move. Plates clattered to the floor, coffee spilled across the counter, but nobody acted. Nobody except Tessa. She dropped the tray she was carrying and sprinted across the room, her shoes sliding on the tile. "Move!" she shouted. "Let me through!" She reached the table where the woman was standing, panic written all over her face. The child gasped silently, his eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, baby. I got you," Tessa said, voice trembling but sure. She slipped behind him, wrapping her arms around his tiny frame. 1, 2, 3. She pulled sharply upward again and again. A piece of food shot out from the boy's mouth, clinking against the table. He coughed, crying in shock and relief. The diner erupted in applause and shouts. "Oh my God!" the mother cried, grabbing her son, holding him tight. "You saved him!" Tessa smiled faintly, her hands shaking. "He's okay now. Just breathe. He's gonna be fine." The manager, wide-eyed, came running. "Tessa, that was incredible. Someone call an ambulance just to check the boy." The little boy clung to his mother, sobbing. But the mother didn't hug Tessa. She didn't even thank her. Minutes later, paramedics arrived and examined the child. "He's fine," one of them said kindly. "Your waitress here saved him just in time." The mother, elegant, dressed in pearls and a designer coat, finally turned to Tessa. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Tessa expected a smile, or maybe a hug, but instead the woman's face hardened. "I didn't ask for your help," she said coldly. The room went silent. What do you mean?" Tessa whispered. "You should have called a professional," the woman snapped. "You could have hurt him. You're just a waitress. What if you'd done it wrong?" Tessa's mouth fell open. "Ma'am, I only wanted to save him." The woman's voice rose, sharp with pride and fear. "You think you're some kind of hero? You people always want attention for doing the bare minimum." The entire diner froze. The paramedics stared. The manager's jaw dropped. Tessa stood there, speechless, humiliation burning her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she managed to say softly. "I was just trying to help." The mother grabbed her purse. "Next time, don't touch my child." She turned and stormed out, dragging the little boy behind her. The door slammed so hard that the bell above it broke loose and hit the floor. Tessa stood in the middle of the diner, shaking, her apron stained, her hands trembling. A customer muttered under his breath, "What's wrong with that woman?" Another whispered, "She saved her kid's life." But Tessa didn't hear them. Her chest felt heavy, her heart pounding in her ears. She turned, wiping her tears, and quietly disappeared into the back of the diner. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her coworker, Maya, ran to her side. "Tessa, what happened out there? Everyone's saying you saved a boy's life." Tessa gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, and got yelled at for it." Maya's face fell. "What? Why?" Tessa looked down. "Because I'm not the kind of person she thought should touch her child." By morning, the story was everywhere. A customer had filmed the whole thing on their phone, the boy choking, Tessa's quick rescue, and the mother's cruel words that followed. The video exploded online. The caption read, "Waitress saves child's life. Mother thanks her with insults." Within hours, it had millions of views. At first, Tessa didn't even know. She was wiping tables when her coworker, Maya, rushed in holding her phone. "Tessa, look at this. You're on the internet." Tessa frowned. "What are you talking about?" Maya turned the screen toward her. There she was, in her diner uniform, doing the Heimlich, saving the boy's life. But then came the part that made her stomach twist. The mother's voice, cold and hateful. "You should have called a professional. You're just a waitress." The comment section was a storm. Thousands of people writing, "That waitress is a hero. That mother doesn't deserve her child. How could anyone be so heartless?" But mixed between them were others. Darker, crueler. "This looks staged." Probably trying to get attention. Why are people making her a hero? She's just doing her job. Tessa closed the phone and whispered, I didn't ask for any of this. By noon, reporters were at the diner. Cameras flashing, microphones pushing toward her face. Miss, can you tell us what happened? Did you know the woman who insulted you? How does it feel to be a hero? Tessa stepped back, overwhelmed. I'm not a hero, she said quietly. I just helped a child who needed me. But her humility only made the story grow. The diner's parking lot filled with people holding signs that read, Support Tessa and Kindness Matters. The manager pulled her aside. Tessa, honey, I think you should take the day off. Things are getting crazy. Tessa nodded, exhausted. Yeah, maybe you're right. That evening, as the sun sank behind the rooftops, Tessa walked home through quiet streets. She lived in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, the kind that smelled like detergent and old dreams. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. But this time it wasn't from a stranger. It was from an unknown number. You humiliated me in front of the world. I hope you're proud of yourself. Tessa froze. She knew exactly who it was. The mother. Her hands trembled as she typed back, I didn't post anything. Someone else filmed it. A few seconds later, the reply came. You people always play the victim. You're lucky I don't press charges for touching my child. Tessa's heart pounded. She whispered, Press charges? For saving his life? The next day, a lawyer showed up at the diner asking for her. I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Whitmore, he said, handing her an envelope. She's filed a complaint, says you caused emotional distress to her son. The manager's mouth fell open. This is insane. But the lawyer only shrugged. My client believes the incident was exaggerated. She claims your actions were unprofessional. Tessa could barely breathe. Unprofessional? He was choking. The lawyer sighed. I'm just delivering the papers. He left, and the whole diner buzzed with disbelief. Can she do that? Maya asked. I don't know, Tessa whispered. But I can't afford a lawyer. Maya frowned. You don't need money. You've got people. Everyone saw what really happened. That night, as Tessa lay awake, her mind raced. How could doing the right thing turn into something so wrong? Why did it always seem like the world punished kindness? Her phone vibrated again. This time, a new notification. Breaking news. Mother who insulted hero waitress faces backlash. Public demands justice. Tessa stared at the screen, her eyes wide. The tide was turning. By morning, the whole country knew her name. Tessa Johnson, the waitress who saved a life. Her face was everywhere. Talk shows, newspapers, social media. But what shocked everyone more than her courage was the mother's cruelty. Clips of the incident played on the news. You're just a waitress. You could have heard him. Outrage poured in from all over. People online had identified the woman. Margaret Whitmore, wife of a wealthy real estate developer. Her company's social media pages flooded with angry comments. Sponsors began backing out of her husband's deals, and the Whitmore family, once untouchable, found themselves cornered by public shame. Meanwhile, Tessa hid from the attention. She stayed off her phone, refused interviews, and avoided crowds. In the diner, she worked quietly, trying to smile through the chaos. But every day, new faces showed up. People who wanted to see her, thank her, or just take a picture. Miss Tessa, one elderly woman said tearfully, you remind me there's still good in this world. Tessa smiled gently. Thank you, ma'am. I'm just glad the boy's okay. But inside, she was still trembling. She didn't like being famous. She didn't like being seen, because being seen meant someone might remember her, someone from a past she never talked about. That night, she came home to find an envelope slipped under her door. No name, no return address. Just one line written in shaky handwriting. You remind me of your mother. Her hands froze. She tore it open and a faded photograph slid out. A picture of a woman in a nurse's uniform. Her mother, the memory hit like lightning. Her mother had been a nurse for 20 years. kind, quiet, always helping others, until one day she was fired. The reason? A wealthy patient's wife had accused her of overstepping. She'd performed CPR on their son without permission. The patient's wife? Margaret Whitmore. Tessa's breath caught. Her mother had saved a child once too, and paid the price. She sat at her tiny kitchen table, the old photograph trembling in her hand. Her mother's soft smile looked back at her. The same eyes, the same calm strength. "Mama," she whispered. "It's happening again." The memory flooded back. The day her mother came home crying, clutching her termination letter. "They said I embarrassed them, Tessa," she'd said quietly. "But I'd do it again if it meant saving that little boy." Her mother had passed away a year later. Her spirit broken, but her kindness intact. Now, history had repeated itself, only this time, the world was watching. The next morning, a black car pulled up outside the diner. Margaret Whitmore stepped out. Sunglasses, expensive coat, but a face that looked nothing like the one from the video. She looked shattered. Tessa froze behind the counter as Margaret entered. The room went silent again. Every customer turned to look. Margaret's voice cracked. "Tessa, can we talk?" The manager whispered, "You don't have to." But Tessa nodded. "It's okay." They stepped outside. Margaret took off her glasses, her eyes red and swollen. "I came to say I'm sorry," she whispered. Tessa said nothing. Margaret swallowed hard. "I lost everything because of what I said. My husband's company, my reputation, my friends. But the truth is I deserve it." Tessa's voice was soft. "You didn't lose everything, Mrs. Whitmore. You still have your son." Margaret's lip trembled. "You sound just like her," Tessa frowned. "Like who?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother. She saved my son once, too." Tessa froze, every sound around her fading away. "What did you just say?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Years ago, I was the one who had her fired." The wind outside the diner carried the faint hum of passing cars. Tessa stood frozen, her heart pounding as Margaret Whitmore's words echoed. "Your mother saved my son once, too." For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Tessa's voice broke the silence. "My mother. Gloria Johnson?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Yes, at St. Mary's Hospital. It was nearly 15 years ago." Tessa's throat tightened. "You got her fired." Margaret's eyes glistened. "I did. And I've regretted it every day since." Tessa's fists clenched at her sides. "You ruined her career." She cried for weeks. She kept saying she only wanted to help. "I know," Margaret whispered. "I know what I did." They stood in the parking lot, autumn leaves swirling around their feet, the golden afternoon light casting long shadows. Margaret took a shaky breath. "Back then, I was a different person. Angry, entitled. I thought I was protecting my child." She looked up, eyes hollow. "When my son started choking that day, your mother rushed in before I could say a word. She saved him in seconds. But when the doctors came, I panicked. I said she had no right to touch him. I thought I was losing control." Tessa blinked back tears. "You weren't losing control. You were losing your pride." Margaret nodded weakly. "You're right," her voice trembled. She didn't fight back. She didn't even defend herself. She just said, "It's okay, ma'am. As long as he's safe." The words hit Tessa like a knife and a hug at once. "That sounds like her," she whispered. Margaret's shoulders shook. "The hospital board asked if I wanted to file a complaint. I said yes. They fired her within a week. And I let them." Tessa's eyes filled. She was a single mother. That job was everything to her. Margaret's tears finally fell. "I know. I saw her in the parking lot afterward. She was sitting in her car, holding a cross necklace and praying. I should have gone to her. I should have said thank you. But I didn't." For a long moment, the sound of the wind filled the silence between them. Finally, Tessa said softly, "You can't undo what happened." Margaret nodded. "I know, but I can try to make it right." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I created a trust fund under your mother's name, for single mothers studying nursing. It won't bring her back, but maybe it can give someone else what I took from her. Tessa hesitated before taking the paper. Why are you doing this now? Margaret's voice cracked. Because you reminded me of her. The way you moved, the way you didn't hesitate to save my son, even after what I said. You didn't act out of hate. You acted out of love, just like she did. Tessa's eyes shimmered with tears. I didn't know I was following in her footsteps. I just did what felt right. Margaret smiled faintly through tears. You did what she would have done. They stood there quietly, two women connected by guilt and grace. Finally, Tessa said, She forgave you, you know. Before she died, she told me that kindness is stronger than pride. Maybe that's why I didn't let your son die, Margaret sobbed, covering her mouth. You could have hated me forever. But you didn't. Tessa wiped her eyes. My mother wouldn't have wanted that. Margaret whispered, Then maybe I can finally sleep tonight. Tessa looked at the paper in her hand. The Gloria Johnson Nursing Fund. She smiled softly. She'd like this. Margaret nodded. Then it's hers. As Margaret walked away, the sky darkened into sunset. Tessa stood still, holding the paper to her heart. She whispered, Mama, they finally know. And for the first time in years, she felt peace. 2 days later, Tessa arrived at work to find the diner busier than ever. Cameras lined the sidewalk, news vans parked out front. Her manager hurried over. Tessa, you might want to see this, she said, pointing to the TV above the counter. On the screen was Margaret Whitmore, standing at a podium surrounded by microphones. Her face looked pale but calm. Not the polished, proud woman from before, but someone who had finally decided to tell the truth. A few days ago, she began, I said something unforgivable. I insulted the woman who saved my child's life. I let fear and pride turn into cruelty. But this isn't the first time I made that mistake. Gasps filled the press room. Cameras flashed. Margaret took a deep breath. Years ago, I did the same to another woman, a nurse named Gloria Johnson. She saved my son when he was dying, and instead of thanking her, I destroyed her career. Her daughter, Tessa, grew up to become the same kind of hero I once shamed. I hurt them both, and I am deeply, truly sorry. Tessa stood frozen, tears slipping down her cheeks as every word played live on TV. Margaret continued, voice trembling. I cannot undo the past, but I can honor the people who changed me. Today, I am announcing the creation of the Gloria Johnson Fund for Compassionate Nursing, in partnership with St. Mary's Hospital. Because heroes don't always wear suits or hold titles. Sometimes they wear aprons and scrubs. The crowd erupted into applause. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes lit the room. But all Tessa could do was lean against the counter, whispering, Mama. They finally said your name. That night, the diner phone rang non-stop. Reporters wanted interviews, people wanted to donate, and former patients of Gloria Johnson wrote messages saying how she had once comforted them. Tessa's co-worker, Maya, smiled through tears. Girl, your mama's story is everywhere. The whole world knows who she was now. Tessa smiled faintly. That's all I ever wanted. Later that week, Margaret walked into the diner quietly. The chatter stopped. Everyone turned. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or pearls, just a simple gray coat. Tessa stepped out from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. Why are you here? She asked softly. Margaret's eyes glistened. To face you. Not as a woman fixing her image, but as a mother saying, thank you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a silver locket with the initials GJ engraved. This belonged to your mother, Margaret said. The hospital found it in storage. I thought it should go back to you. Tessa took it gently, her fingers trembling. Inside was a tiny photo, her mother holding her as a baby, both smiling. She never told me she had this, Tessa whispered. Margaret smiled sadly. She kept it close. Said it reminded her why she did what she did. Tessa's eyes shimmered. Thank you for returning it, Margaret nodded. You gave me something, too. A second chance to be a better human being. A few days later, the hospital held a small ceremony. A portrait of Gloria Johnson was unveiled in the new nurses' training wing. Tessa stood in front of it, tears streaming down her cheeks as applause filled the hall. Beside her, Margaret placed a hand over her heart. "She saved my son," Margaret said softly, "and through her daughter, she saved me." The crowd fell silent. The air felt sacred, like grace made visible. Tessa looked up at her mother's portrait and whispered, "You never needed the world to see you, Mama, but now they finally do." 3 years later, the diner walls looked a little different. Where there once hung faded menus and neon signs, now there were photographs, smiling nurses in training, children in hospital beds holding thank you cards, and a framed newspaper headline that read, "From Waitress to Inspiration. Tessa Johnson continues." Her mother's work. The little corner diner had become something more. A place people visited not just for food, but for hope. Every week, someone came in to tell Tessa their story. A nurse who got her degree because of the Gloria Johnson Fund. A single mother who found strength after reading about her. A doctor who said Gloria's words inspired him to treat every patient with respect. The diner had become a living tribute to kindness, the kind that quietly heals the world. On a warm Sunday morning, the bell above the door jingled. Tessa looked up from the counter and froze. It was Margaret Whitmore. Older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her smile gentle. Beside her was her son. Taller, healthier, maybe 16 now. "Hey," he said shyly. "Do you remember me?" Tessa smiled softly. "Of course I do. You gave us all a scare that day." He laughed, cheeks turning red. "Mom told me everything. About your mom. About what she did for me. I just wanted to say, thank you." Tessa nodded, eyes shining. "You don't owe me thanks. Just live a good life." That's what she'd want. Margaret stepped forward, her voice calm but emotional. "We brought something for you." She handed Tessa a framed photo. The new hospital wing. A plaque below it, reading, "The Gloria Johnson Center for Compassion and Care, built in honor of a nurse who believed in forgiveness." Tessa ran her fingers along the words, her throat tight. "You built this?" Margaret nodded. "You inspired it. After what happened, I made it my life's mission to teach empathy. Not just for the people like me who have it all, but for those who give everything and get nothing back." Tessa smiled, whispering, "You finally understood her." Margaret's eyes glistened. "Yes, and you showed me how." That afternoon, Tessa closed early and drove to the small cemetery outside town. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and pink. She knelt by her mother's headstone, laying down a single white rose. On the stone was carved Gloria Johnson, nurse, mother, hero. Kindness is stronger than pride. Tessa smiled softly. "Mama, it's done. The world knows who you are now. They built a whole center with your name on it. And people, real people, are healing because of you." A soft wind brushed her cheek, and for a moment she could almost hear her mother's voice. "I told you, baby. Do good, even when they don't see you." Tessa closed her eyes and whispered, "They see you now." Later that week, Tessa stood outside the diner, watching families laugh inside. A new waitress, young, nervous, dropped a tray of plates and customers laughed kindly, helping her pick them up. Tessa smiled. "That's how it should be," she whispered. She turned the diner's lights off, leaving the sign glowing in the window. The Gloria Diner, where kindness lives. As she locked the door, her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. "First graduate from the Gloria Johnson Nursing Fund just saved her first life tonight. Said she learned it from your story." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. Her mother's legacy wasn't just alive, it was growing. She looked up at the night sky and whispered, "We did it, Mama. You're still saving them." Moral of the story. The world remembers cruelty for a moment, but kindness lasts forever. Forgiveness doesn't erase the pain, it transforms it into purpose.